Sunday morning, and sitting in the corner was a long-haired hippie boy. It was not love at first sight. It took us about 5 years to fall in love and get married. But I'm so glad that Daddy obeyed God, amen? But sitting on that back row, he was a mixed up 14-year-old kid. I had no idea what his life was like. He had been beat on, he had been pushed around, and his daddy, his real daddy, didn't even want to be a daddy to him. And it worked out years later. Bill got to meet his real dad when he was 18 years old. His daddy shook his hand, basically found out he was a Christian, turned around and walked out again. Still didn't want to be in his life. So he was raised by stepdaddies and boyfriends from his mom, and they were cruel and abusive. And he shared with me yesterday, I've told y'all several times that they would put him out of the house all day long while they did their drugs and watched their filth. He says he remembers one time in particular. He was hot, he was sweaty, he was hungry, he was thirsty, but he couldn't get in the house. He said he just said, "Lord, I sure wish my grandma would come by and pick me up." He just kind of said it out of the top of his head, but he did pray, "Lord." He said about 5 minutes later, Grandma showed up. But she wasn't able to be there all the time, and he remembers they would come home drunk. One time a stepdaddy came home with a shotgun and said, "I'm going to kill everybody in this house." Him and his little sister had to hide under the bed. The police were at their house all the time. Somebody was always going to jail. As he got a little older, he figured out he could take a baseball bat and get that one stepdaddy that was beating up on his mama. There was a lot of bitterness and anger bottled up. He dropped out of school, but the detention center said, "If I see you up here again, we're going to put you away for a while." Because the last time he got in trouble, he was beating a young man's head into the concrete because somebody was making fun of him. You just don't understand what kids are going through these days. Mamas and daddies are having babies that they don't want. They're strung out on drugs. Grannies are having to raise babies. He says he never really remembers feeling that safe and secure feeling of somebody loving him. But thank God for that praying grandma. The hand of God kept mercy on his life. Joined some gangs, got into some trouble, sent up to juvie. And instead of being put away for a while, that judge said, "Go live with your grandma." Doors wide open, Grandma took him in, and they started taking him to the house of God and feeding him Jesus. And he happened to be there that Sunday morning. God sent my family to that little church. An old-time conviction came in the house, and it didn't matter if they were doing Lecrae or Casting Crowns or Newsboys. It didn't matter if they were doing the old redback hymnal. When you're desperate and you need God and He calls your name, He'll move through whatever He can to touch you. Reached all the way to that back row and touched Bill's heart. Pulled him down to an old-fashioned altar, and instead of going to juvie, instead of going to rehab, instead of going to family counseling, God took all that abuse, all that neglect, and changed the direction he was headed. That's the mercy of God. Never give up on your loved ones. Keep praying until God moves, because He sure will. And I'm thankful for that kind of mercy tonight. Amen. You have to let Him walk in, though. He's not going to force Himself. He's a gentleman. He'll call your name. He'll say, "Bill, I love you. I want you." But He ain't going to force His way in. You have to invite Him in. And that's what these altars are for tonight. Invite that grace into your life and that mercy. And He'll do more for you than a daddy that loves you and leaves you $1 million. You may not have that, You may not have someone to teach you how to drive or to teach you how to shave, or He might not have been there to teach you how to ride your bike, young man. But I know a God that'll be the best daddy to you, and He'll never leave you, and He'll never forsake you. And He'll walk with you through the deepest, darkest pit of your life. And He'll make something out of you. He'll make you special because He is God. Amen? Sing it, Bill.
I stood in the courtroom, the judge turned my way. It looks like you're guilty. Now what do you say? I spoke up. I said, Your Honor, I have no defense. But that's when mercy walked in. And mercy walked in and pleaded my case, called to the stand of God's saving grace. The blood was presented that covered my sin, forgiven when mercy walked in. I stood there and wondered, how could this be? Someone so guilty had just been set free. But my chains, they were broken. I felt born again. The moment when mercy walked in. And mercy walked in and pleaded my case, called to the stand of God's saving grace. The blood was presented that covered my sin, forgiven when mercy walked in. The blood was presented that covered my sin, forgiven when mercy walked in.